Beliefs without consequences. We are living in a world where it has never been easier to have an opinion and never less necessary to live with its consequences. We have built a culture that rewards commentary more than participation, where having a point of view often carries more weight than doing the work. Talk is cheap, it always has been, but it's never been cheaper than it is now. Which is why I was inspired when I came across the idea of luxury beliefs, a term popularized by Rob Henderson, a social scientist who studies class and culture. He has given language to something I've been noticing for a long time. A luxury belief, in its simplest form, is a belief you can afford to hold because you don't have to live with its consequences. Two people can hold the same belief. For one, it is expressive. For the other, it is consequential. That difference is not about intention, but proximity. His framing is provocative and easy to weaponize, but that would be a mistake. The real value of this concept lies not in judging others, but in examining ourselves. I have spent most of my life building businesses, often in environments where reality shows up quickly. In retail, there is a simple truth: nothing happens until it takes place in the store. You can have strategy decks, brand positioning, and bold ideas, but if they don't show up at the moment of truth, when a customer actually makes a choice, they don't matter. Over time, I've learned that the further you are from the customer, the easier it is to hold opinions that sound good but don't hold up. Distance creates abstraction, and abstraction, if left unchecked, can drift into illusion. There is something fundamentally healthy about being close to the action. Reality has a way of correcting you. It introduces trade offs, exposes blind spots, and forces you to confront what actually works. It's rarely clean or elegant, but it is real. A culture of commentary. This is not an argument against having opinions. Open discourse matters, questioning matters. Many of the ideas that move society forward begin as critique. But like most things, it is a question of balance. And right now, the balance feels off. We are surrounded by, and we reward, commentary, predictions, reactions, and analysis. A running conversation about the game rather than participation in it. The result is that we begin to mistake observation for understanding and expression for real contribution. From the stands to the arena. A luxury belief is formed in the stands, not in the arena. The arena is where reality shows up. It is where decisions carry consequences, where trade offs are unavoidable, and where effort meets friction. Progress is uneven, outcomes are rarely as planned. From a distance, things look simpler. You can imagine cleaner solutions, better strategies, more elegant outcomes. But that clarity is a feature of the distance, not of the thinking. As Dwight D. Eisenhower, former US president, once observed, things always look easier when your plow is a pencil and you are far from the field. The closer you get to the work, the more you begin to understand why things are the way they are. Decisions should be made as close as possible to where their consequences are felt. Beliefs as belonging. There was a time when status was displayed through what you owned. Today, much of it is expressed through what you believe about work, family, freedom, and responsibility. These beliefs do not just describe your worldview, they signal who you are and where you belong. In many cases, a belief is not really about the idea itself, it is scaffolding for a reality someone finds attractive, a ticket to a world they want to belong to. Hold the belief, and you're part of the world. Rejected, and you're outside it. The belief is not the destination, it is the entry point. Today, it's also easy to confuse the messenger with the message. We adopt beliefs because who is saying them, not because we've tested them. Ralph Waldo Emerson, the American essayist and philosopher, called this imitation. He saw it as a kind of self erasure. When you borrow your convictions wholesale from someone else, you quietly give up something of your own. The instinct to belong is deeply human. When it becomes the driver, truth tends to become secondary. The loss of perfection. Proximity to the work also means losing the luxury of perfection. Real decisions are made under constraint. There is never enough time, information, or resources to do everything you would like. You are constantly navigating trade offs and making choices that are directionally right rather than perfectly resolved. In my own leadership journey, many times I found that I was right on direction, but wrong on timing. An idea can make sense and still fail because the environment is not ready, or because execution is more difficult than it appears. That does not make the idea meaningless, but it does mean that having the right idea is only part of the equation. Execution, context, and timing matter. Respect the people doing the work. We've begun to place more weight on those who comment than on those who do. The people closest to the work, the ones making decisions and living with the consequences, tend to develop a different perspective over time. During COVID, much of the conversation was shaped from distance. For healthcare workers, delivery drivers, and frontline employees, there was no separation from it. They showed up every day and carried the system forward, while others described it. I've seen this dynamic play out across industries. In healthcare, for example, it is easy to critique the system from the outside, much harder when you're inside it, dealing with incentives, constraints, and trade offs that are not always visible until you're in it. And something else becomes clear. People tend to support what they help create. If you want to change a system, you have to engage with the people and constraints that shape it. Progress is a contact sport. I will always take a 50% idea with 100% execution over a perfect idea that never meets reality. When reality gets personal, our relationship with reality is not only shaped by what we study or build, it is shaped by what we experience. In my own life, I lost my sister at a young age. Losing people close to you strips away abstraction. It brings you face to face with something that cannot be theorized or explained away. That experience created a belief that, however uncomfortable it may be, reality has to be faced as it is, not resisted or softened, and not replaced with something more convenient. Ideas that felt clear in theory became far more complex up close. What seemed obvious required nuance, trade offs, and adjustment. That kind of proximity makes certain beliefs harder to hold. When beliefs become cheap. Not long ago, opinions were naturally constrained. You shared them with a small circle, or if you had access to a platform, through limited channels. Most beliefs existed in relativity. and in contained environments. Today, that constraint has largely disappeared. Anyone can express a view, amplify it, and distribute it instantly. The barrier to entry has fallen to nearly zero. As a result, beliefs have started to feel cheap. While the cost of expressing a belief has dropped, the consequences have not. They still shape how we see each other, influence systems, and guide behavior. When opinions are formed casually, without real understanding, it becomes easier to reduce people to ideas, to judge rather than understand. That shift changes the quality of how we relate to one another. Robert Greenleaf, the thinker behind servant leadership, made a point that has stayed with me. If we want our institutions to serve us better, we have to approach them with respect, not contempt. This is not that different from the golden rule. Treat our institutions the way we want them to treat us. I often think about that when I see how casually we dismiss people and systems we have never been close to. Contempt from a distance does not build better institutions. It makes the people inside them less willing to try. Ultimately, that erodes trust, not just in ideas, but in each other. From opinion to understanding. Ideas improve through contact with reality. Daniel Ek, who founded Spotify, put it well. Impact is a trailing indicator of happiness. The doing comes first, the meaning follows. That is not just a management principle, it is how most people are wired. We want to feel that effort leads somewhere real. Reality may be imperfect, but it is honest. Part of the challenge is that the world has become harder to make sense of. There is more information, noise, and competing narratives than ever before. When things do not make sense, people naturally look for clarity. They reach for explanations that feel coherent, even if they're incomplete. True understanding comes from lived experience, from conversation, from sitting with complexity instead of rushing to resolve it. When we engage with that process, we build the confidence to trust our own judgment rather than borrow it from others. Emerson called it self reliance. I call it agency. Now, your turn. If the consequences of your beliefs landed on your doorstep tomorrow, which ones would you still hold? And which ones have you actually earned the right to hold? Please engage. Thank you for being here. See ya.